Welcome to episode 240 of the Grip Strip podcast, the sticky Henhouse edition of the Grip Strip podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host. And as always, I'm with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar, and Leadfoot as of the last episode. His name is Josh. Fine. What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil, as always. Glad to be back on the show, of course. Jaguars finally get their first win, the 2024 season, on Sunday as well, so glad about that. Maybe not so happy about our fantasy matchup, but it is what it is, and everything. So I had a lot to talk about with all the wild racing that we've seen here at Talladega this past weekend.
And in ode to Richard, we'll go and open a can, but not beer. Not for me, at least. Richard getting the victory after most of the field gets destroyed at Talladega in a race which basically was a four-wide, looked like a procession on a freeway for a good amount of the race. But we'll get into all that. Issues with the DVP policy, not being able to pass, fuel mileage racing, things that all came up after Sunday's race. Then the points, of course, heading to the Roval Cutoff. Sammy Smith took that out of play by winning in a last lap pass in Xfinity. So gets his second win of his career in that series. While his teammates Sam Mayer and Justin Allgaier had issues. Mayer gets DQ'd post-race. Justin Allgaier's had a brutal run of races, and it continues. In terms of how that looks for both of them, they're outside of the cutoff going in, so we'll get in all that heading into the Roval for the Xfinity Series. Grand Enfinger and Oldsmobile, not for Grand Enfinger, but Oldsmobile's first win since 1992, and first Truck Series win ever. If you don't understand that reference, we'll get in. We talked about it previously that there was an error, but we'll get into all that. But the trucks, first race of their round of 8, which means that Grant Enfinger will be racing for a championship. And remember, last year he was a few laps away from possibly winning the championship before Corey Heim decided to go and pull a Carson Hocevar on Carson Hocevar. Most of the playoff drivers are able to make it through, so we'll get into that a couple of weeks before Homestead, the next race. So it'll be a few weeks before that. We'll get into some IndyCar news. Michael Andretti wrote a letter to the fans and everyone explaining his decision to step away from the team named after him, and what's going to, I guess, take place or what he's going to be doing. At the same time, his dad is still pushing to get to Formula One with that organization, and there's other aspects of that organization that'll still keep going. Major announcement for a race for 2026. They will be racing in Arlington, Texas, in basically the roads and lots and things that are connected to Cowgirls Stadium and Globe Life Field. And so that'll be a big early season event in 2026 for the IndyCar Series, and having two major sports franchises involved, arguably outside of the Yankees, the most known franchise in the U.S. In terms of sports, and the Cowgirls, even though they don't win anything. The Yankees haven't won anything in a long time either, so I guess I can't really make that comment. But get into what that race means. Of course, no Texas Motor Speedway anymore. They went from being a place which held so many different races to now having one weekend for all three NASCAR series. So interesting. I wonder what Goosage would think about that. NFL Week 5. We will recap our matchup in FallBrawl. Jacksonville comes through, beats Indianapolis again, even with Joe Flacco coming out of a corpse like The Undertaker again and throwing all over the map. Jacksonville held on to get a victory there. First win of the season for them. So Josh at least won't want to go and do terrible things to somebody on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Though I want to do terrible things to the 49ers because of the fact that they make my blood pressure rise every single week. And we'll get into how they blew another game leading into Thursday Night Football against Seattle in a third consecutive division game. So you try to win that and get back into the division lead. The roundup will talk about MotoGP, which race in Motegi. NHRA will be in Dallas this coming weekend. Tony Stewart went and won a regional top alcohol dragster title for the McPhillips team. So while he sucks in a top fuel car, he's still pretty good in a top alcohol dragster. So I guess that's where he's going to be going back to once Leah's ready to get back in a car sometime next year. And Supercars has the biggest race of the year for them, the Bathurst 1000 this coming weekend. They did make an announcement for the schedule a couple weeks ago. Now they're going to have a format that is similar to NASCAR with points resets and stages of the season and the whole bit. So that we'll get into that and talk about all their changes. IMSA has a Petit Le Mans to end their season. The WEC is coming up in a few weeks, but they have one race to go in their season. So the news coming along in terms of teams and drivers and the like and cars, we'll go through all that. We'll make our picks for Cup and Xfinity at the Roval. There's also changes to the racetrack. We'll discuss those and who makes it to the round of 8 in both of those series. Josh will let us know all things going on in iRacing gaming in the sim segment, and then we'll call it a day and preview or give a reference to somebody later on to keep you on your toes. Okay, let's go to Talladega. Super Speedway racing is, what it is. It's always left me enraged in large part because my drivers usually haven't been good at it. Brad was good at it, but he never won the 500. But somebody who is good at it when he doesn't crash is Richard. And after getting door slammed at the end of in the wreck, that big wreck that took out 28 cars, or involved 28 cars, he held on to get his 4th career victory, 2 at both tracks now. He's won both races. He won the spring race at Talladega for his first career win, and he won the Coke Zero 400 later that season, where he famously said 1776 we are the champs. That was when he was still porking that surfboard Miss Hummer. Now he's married with a kid, and they went out there, won the 500 last year, and now he's won this race. So he's won he's won these 4 plate races. Now he has to go and win at Atlanta, since now that's a drafting track. So we'll see if he can go and do that. This race, there were plenty of lead changes, or weren't. There was only 2 cautions where there's decent incidents, really, with and that there was a wreck leading in a stage coming to the end of stage 2 with the couple Penske cars, Chastain, Hamlin, LaJoy, and then SVG. Yeah, SVG. And then the big one late in the race, 66 lead changes amongst 24 drivers. but in the end, 2 non-playoff guys and 3 non-playoff guys in the top 5. Richard wins over Brad Keselowski, William Byron, Kyle Larson, Eric Jones, who now has a new crew chief after Dave Ellens got let go. So that all these connections to what was the Petit team are starting to get dumped off one after the other. Chris Bell, Justin Haley from 35th to 7th, Bald Spot Dillon, Darrell Walsh Jr., Denny Hamlin gets a top 10, Martin Truex 11th, Cody Ware, Keebler Gibbs, Hocevar round out top, and Shane Van Gisbergen round out top 15. Only 4 drivers still in the playoff in the top 15. Add another 2 in Bowman in 16th and Reddick in 20th. And after that, you have a lot of drivers that had issues, were involved in that big wreck. Suarez was involved in a wreck early in the race with McLeod, and had struggled after that the whole rest of the day. Clyde, Chase Briscoe, who's probably having his best super speedway race of his career after starting tailback. And they end up 29th and 30th, so 2 chases back to back. Gumby Cindric, who led the second most laps, the second most laps on the day and was leading or up front when the wreck happened. Joey Logano, and then teammate Ryan Blaney was wrecked by that. Oh yeah, that was the one with Alex Bowman. That was the one which Alex Bowman drove right through Ryan Blaney. So those are all guys that were involved. Chastain, coming off of winning a race the week before, goes first out the next week. So it shows how in racing you can go from hero to zero in just a matter of a week's time. But I mean, Richard getting a win at a super speedway isn't that surprising. How we got to that point isn't surprising either, even with the changes they made to the car. I mean, the one thing I'll say, Josh, the cars all stayed on the ground. They weren't really able to go anywhere, and you're basically were stuck where you were, which seems like a problem that we've had for many years, ever since we gone to this car, I think. But then it kind of had similarities in the Gen 6 at times, and even with the Gen 5. I mean, to be fair, I think for as long as I've been watching, going back to when before like the Gen 3 era was the last time where you kind of could go and move around. Kind of Gen 4 when they put the wicker on the top, the aero package they put on the cars in 2000 and then got rid of after Dale Earnhardt's passing. That was around the time or last time where I really think you could, in a pack racing where you could make passes and really truly didn't have to have tons of help. Dale Earnhardt and of course Dale Jr. proved that. But ever since then, you've needed to have a decent amount of help outside of the tandem days, which were my favorite time to watch super speedway racing. Dale Jr. hated it, so they got rid of it. I think the racing would be better. There'd be more passes, less likelihood of destroying a bunch of race cars, but that's for just a talk for another day. In this case, Stenhouse got through that wreck, was up front. There were a bunch of Chevys around him. Even with all the Hendrick cars basically being able to have a chance, or 3 of the Hendrick cars, they weren't able to team up and pass Richard. I mean, at least this year he can go and say he had 2 highlights instead of 1. That had nothing to do with really racing. He has a racing highlight now, and he has a highlight of decking Kyle Busch, which, considering he may not have a job at the end of this season, yeah, you could say it's a walk-off shot for him, a mic drop of sorts for Richard, Josh, as he outlasted everyone to get a win at Talladega.
Yeah, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. survives the carnage, which for a long time seemed like we weren't going to have a big one. And watching this live on TV, it was mind blowing that they were able to run 4 wide for several laps without having any issues. But then when you realize that they weren't really racing, they were kind of just doing a formation there because they were trying to all save fuel in some type of way. That allowed them to just run 4 wide without any issues there. But even then, there was still possible chance that somebody could make a mistake there in that pack and take somebody out, and it didn't happen until the end. And basically, Stenhouse survived that. Austin Cindric got taken out there at the end by Keselowski, which I don't think it was really Keselowski's fault, just a bad push from behind there, likely from Logano or somebody else, and took him out of that wreck. So, definitely for the field, that was definitely not a good time, but for most of them, especially the guys that couldn't make it back to pit road. But Stenhouse still able to remain up front there and take the victory there. So, it seems like he just figures out a way to be up front when it matters most during the super speedway races and the drafting races. So, got to give a lot of credit for Stenhouse to remain up there. And this is his one racing highlight. And you think about it, like it had been since the very beginning of the 2023 season, since he'd won at the Daytona 500, now finally winning, albeit on a super speedway. At least he gets to say that he had led or had won at least one race in 2 consecutive seasons now, which he hasn't done before. So that's, I guess, a new mark, career mark there for Stenhouse. Of course, almost 2 years, given that the fact that this super speedway win came almost 2 years after the Daytona 500 there. So, that's also has to be considered there. You talk about the way that it's hard maneuver around in this package, and I mean, just it's so draggy. This car is just so draggy that it's just really hard to make any moves on your own. Like, even playing iRacing on this game, it's very hard to have you really have to have a lot of confidence to be able to pull out and pass, because very quickly, you'll run out of steam there. And it's definitely, we've seen that before, guys pulling out the pass. Kyle Busch tried it on the last lap, trying to pull out, and nobody went with him. They all left him hung out to dry there. And kind of interesting how the dynamic of the last couple of laps on a super speedway, everybody kind of just stays in their 2 lanes. Nobody really tries anything 3 wide or anything. And I thought somebody would go with Busch just to no risk it, or risk it no biscuit there kind of deal. And nobody went with him, which I found surprising there. But that took him out of, like, because he went from being like, I think like maybe 5th or 6th on the final lap all the way back to 19th there. So unfortunate deal for him, not being able to capitalize on that situation. But Stenhouse stays up front. Keselowski tries to get the win there, but he's not able to close in time. Kyle Larson up there for a chance for a win. Spotter tells him can't push forward to victory lane, basically. William Byron also there. So, it's a Hendrick engine win there for Stenhouse, but he's been proven time and time again that he knows how to get it done on super speedways, for sure. One thing I'll say about the big wreck there, I mean, not the fact that it took a long time for them to get people get going again. Some people flat tire and stuff like that, like Joey Logano and Cindric. Chase Briscoe, of course, had his deal there, trying to stay on the lead lap and not get towed back to the garage. But I guess that is truly the largest wreck in modern super speedway racing history, because you go back into the old days, like I kind of remember 2002, 2003, 2005. Those were some big wrecks. You had the one with 2002, big wreck on the backstretch. 2003, Ryan Newman blew a tire in turn 1 and 2. In 2005, Mike Wallace and Jimmy Johnson got into it on the front stretch going into turn 1 there. And those were all very large pileups. And we always see large pileups at Talladega, but it seems like they tend to be smaller these days. And everybody's, the next gen car being able to put it back together very quickly, and even the old car and the Gen 6, you're able to kind of get back underway as long as you didn't take too much damage. And we've seen cars get taped up literally and still remain on the lead lap and everything. But this 28 car wreck, I guess, supersedes all of them in terms of the size of the wreck. But even then, many of the cars, like Bubba Wallace, able to drive backwards and get away out of it. So shows the indestructibility, I guess, of the next gen car. Of course, the ones that couldn't get away from the wreck and stay in it, obviously they had the flat tires, like I mentioned. So yeah, this, I mean, in one hand, this is a wild race, but on the other hand, like, it's almost like we see this now. We're kind of used to it in this third year of the next gen, that we're kind of used to how they're running four wide like that. And maybe it's not quite as exciting anymore. 4 wide is kind of unique like that, but just them, when you're not really able to make any moves there's too many cars stacked on top of each other. Yeah, I guess it can seem a little bit boring, kind of. And like you mentioned, like, I think Gen 4, especially if it's a good car, you're able to still kind of drive your way to the front and make moves on your own. And now these days, with the way the drag is set up, the way the cars and the engines are set up for this track and Daytona, it's really hard to do anything completely on your own unless you just have a really, really good car, or just that confident in your abilities. So yeah, that's something, I don't know, not sure if NASCAR will look at that or not, but yeah, that's definitely a thing that I've noticed now these days with this car and this type of track.
Yeah, and it's even at Talladega, you're able to spread out more because it's wider. So at Daytona, it's not as possible. At Atlanta, it's not as possible. But there are similarities in that you kind of move up one row at a time, kind of deal. And you use, side drafting, things like that to try and advance. But it isn't as, there isn't that slingshot effect. Lack of horsepower too also doesn't help, but then we've went over that. I mean, at this point with this car, I mean, there's plenty of issues with it. And I mean, Blaney even said, like, the wrecks still hurt, so it doesn't really. And we never really heard that in the Gen 5 and 6 era, because I think they put so much of an emphasis on safety. It's almost like they completely forgot all of the good they had with that, and made this GT3 car to race on ovals. And can they just take the diffuser off and let's see what happens? Like, why is this such a thing that, one, they won't try to put 900 horsepower, and they won't take the diffuser off the car. They won't, they insist on this, and you're going to ruin short track racing. You've ruined road courses outside of Watkins Glen, which, I mean, my personal bias aside, Watkins Glen is a fast track. So it's like the intermediate track version of a road course. You have Snoroma, which is a short track, so that's why it sucks. I mean, it sucked for years anyways, but you have Coda, that's a big, very technical road course. You're going to go to Hermanos Rodriguez circuit, which is a lot of there's 2 or 3 straightaways, a bunch of kind of tight Mickey Mouse corners in between with the 1S section. There's essentially 2 passing zones there. So that race is not going to be very compelling. They have all these different road courses, but then it's like with the plate tracks, you have Daytona, which is, has the biggest race of the year. You have Talladega, which has these 2 races, and you sell out the crowd no matter what. And then now Atlanta, which is a draw for the first time in decades because it's a drafting track. But it isn't really about racing as much as it is, they're all together. But there's a difference between racing and all being packed together. But it's whatever. I really don't. I'm getting tired of it. These races are too damn long. They could go and do this race for 300 miles, and you could get to the same damn result as they do spending 3.5 hours doing this. You really don't need to draw out the amount of time that they do doing these races, and help us all out. It shouldn't. The races that should be that long are ones where you're actually on a racetrack where you actually can control your own destiny versus a racetrack which is a super speedway and likely to have massive wrecks. Points heading into the Roval, Byron, by basically lasting, got enough points to advance. Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, more or less without, the bottom falling out, will make it. So then you have Hamlin, Bowman, Blaney, who before the big wreck was not in great shape, but the big wreck helped him out. Reddick, who's had a bad round of bad playoff, gets somewhat of a reprieve, and then Clyde, who is plus 13 over Joey Logano. Tyler Reddick's plus 14 above the cut, so he's only a point ahead of that. Suarez minus 20, Cindric minus 29, Briscoe minus 32. So you think about Cindric and Briscoe probably need a win. Suarez would have to score good amount of stage points, both stages, to give himself an opportunity. And so we'll see what happens going to the Roval. Xfinity, I mentioned that Sammy Smith goes and gets the win, but his teammates Sam Mayer and Justin Allgaier have a day to forget in the end. Sam Mayer got nailed for the ride heights, and he goes from 16th to 38th, lost a whole lot of points in the process, which affects his standing going into the Roval. Sammy Smith wins over Ryan Sieg. Riley Herbst led the second most laps on the day, finished third. Sheldon Creed fourth. Chandler Smith fifth. Jesse Love, who started on pole, led the most laps, finished sixth. Jeb Burton, David Starr, Brennan Poole, and Kyle Sieg round out the top 10. AJ Allmendinger, Parker Kligerman, 11th and 12th. You have Eric Almirillo was 19th. Hank Hill was 23rd. Allgaier 25th. Custer 26th. SVG 35th. And Sam Mayer, as mentioned, got sent tailback with that infraction. Yeah, I mean, and you had that last lap pass. Herbst got ganged up. The Gibbs cars tried to make something happen there, or at least Chandler Smith tried to. Jesse Love was there, but being a rookie, he didn't get the help, even though he had the fastest race car. But in the end, Sammy Smith, who's had a terrible year, barely made the playoff, basically taking over, being another Buckshot Jones, needed a win. And by getting that win, Josh, he's now into the round of 8. He's good at Martinsville. He's been good at Phoenix. He's won at Phoenix before. So there is a path for Sammy Smith after what has been a pretty useless year to possibly make the Final Four now.
Yeah, it's crazy how it kind of could work for Sammy Smith, because he's had good results at those tracks that you need to make it into the Final Four and make it into possibly be the champion. And we've seen that hint from him in the past, but I mean, even then, it's still, there are other guys in the series who are just as good, if not better, than him at those tracks. Like, I mean, Justin Allgaier is pretty good at Martinsville and has, done well enough to win there. Hasn't gotten quite done at Phoenix for him, but there are other drivers there in this championship that I think are better. And Chandler Smith still could have a shot here, especially over the next couple of races here in the in this playoffs. So there's still opportunities for other drivers that I would probably consider before Sammy Smith, but there, like you said, yeah, there's definitely an opportunity here if he's able to just show up at Martinsville, if he hasn't already pointed his way in or locked his way in via a win, where he could just steal one and make it into the championship 4, and then possibly go out and win the championship there. So and Phoenix. So yeah, it's definitely a possibility there that definitely have to consider. But how much would you take it seriously over another driver? I don't know, but yeah, what a win for him, at least, for Junior Motorsports. I feel like, they've struggled a little bit in the last couple of years closing for victories on super speedways, but Allgaier's gotten it done in the past, but at least, this one, they were able to get up front and stay organized. And I know Allgaier was trying to go for the win at the end. Sam Mayer ended up getting disqualified anyways, and then Jones and Qualpel got taken out in the same accident. So, at least for the organization, they were able to, one of their cars was able to win. So, which I guess, Dale Jr. is probably happy about that. So that was, definitely good to hear for him, I guess. But yeah, for the rest of the guys, Austin Hill, of course, I picked him, and he was up there for a bit, but just got shuffled to the back at the wrong time, and then got caught up in the accident towards the end that SVG was also in. So, and that took him out of that race there. So, for Austin Hill, I mean, that's a missed opportunity because, he's definitely somebody that thrives on these super speedway tracks, and, you expect him to, run up front, led stage 2, finished up there. So, for him, kind of a disappointment to, finish in the mid-20s all torn up, 23rd. So, not the result that he needed there, for sure. And yeah, some of these other guys like Allgaier got in the wreck. Cole Custer, was wrecked as well. So, points wise, they, even though they've got some that they can fall back on, like Allgaier is completely out of it now in terms of competing there, and still has to go through AJ Allmendinger, who is a threat on this road course. So coming up at Charlotte Roval, so not really in a good situation there for Allgaier after running up front all day and then getting caught up in the big one at the end there. So real unfortunate there. Austin Hill still has a chance, even though he got wrecked, but and so does Cole Custer. But a couple of bad races here for Allgaier, and now he's looking on the outside, looking in, so that's not good. And then, SVG also, he had a chance there to finish in the top 10 and make it out, but now he has to win, and that's another threat for Allgaier is the guy right behind him in the point standings, SVG. We've talked about him all year, his capability on road courses, and has won nearly all of them. And after wrecking out in Talladega, now he has to go and win his way into the next round, which I've been saying it might happen. So it might happen, and that would, if someone else doesn't have an issue there, could force Allgaier out of the playoffs a little bit earlier than maybe what some people were expecting there. So, it's definitely a very interesting race there too. Ryan Sieg almost won as well there. I guess other stuff that happened, talk about the wreck with Carson Quapple and Brandon Jones, kind of similar to one of the wrecks I mentioned earlier, 2005, Jimmy Johnson, Mike Wallace on the front stretch at Talladega there, and I think similar in the Busch race there that year too. So the wreck was very similar to that in my opinion, just kind of how it played out in the pack, and how that kind of triggered and got everybody going. But just as much carnage, I think, as there is in any super speedway race, just like like it always is. So the race is definitely fairly entertaining for sure, and looking forward to kind of seeing how, I guess, all this kind of resolves itself, I guess, points wise here coming up at the Roval.
Yeah, I mean, the points, like you mentioned, for Allgaier, I don't think he imagined he'd be -7 out of the cut line going to the Roval. But behind AJ Allmendinger, who's had a rough year, Allmendinger's never lost at the Roval in an Xfinity car. So he would have to continue that to guarantee a spot into the round of 8. Allgaier doesn't have to win per se. I mean, none of those guys really theoretically have to win. It's not as big of a points gap. It might alter how they race the first couple of stages. SVG, Sam Mayer, Parker Kligerman, but I think SVG is someone that, he, on the weekend of the Bathurst 1000, a race he won last year, he's won twice, racing on what is akin to a street track for the Supercars drivers. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to make a better choice than him. So, Sam Mayer, can he go and point his way in? He's been running his I guess his results are on and off, so you don't know. He hasn't been as good as he was last year. And then Kligerman, who's in his last full-time season, at least that's what he says, trying to stay alive, get a win for Scott Borchetta before Nick Sanchez takes over that ride. We'll see what happens. I mean, there are 17 points separating third and seventh. Well, there's a lot of volatility with that. So we'll see who gets in there accordingly. In the Truck Series, this race at Talladega, then they have, 22 days after the race at Talladega till their next race at Homestead. And so there is new stuff dicey. So in the end, Alabama's Grant Enfinger gets the victory in the truck race over Taylor Gray, Daniel Dye, Rajah Caruth. Algorithm picked Lawless Allen, who tried to make a move on the final lap to win, which would have been the second time that's picked winner. I don't know if one of us picked Spencer Boyd a few years ago. I don't think so, but that was also there were so many random winners. Like, what was it? It was Spencer Boyd was one of them. There was the Canadian guy that used to drive in the trucks for Kyle Busch Motorsports. That was his only win of his career. It was a DiBurrito. It was the last year. So yeah, there's usually craziness with the truck series. So, but in the end, Enfinger, a points race, a regular, goes and leads the most laps. Started pretty far up front and fourth, driving an Oldsmobile, which is a joke based on what happened on the entry list. Somehow or another, someone wrote Oldsmobile on there instead of Chevrolet. So then it became a whole goof on the internet, graphics and everything. So first win for Oldsmobile in NASCAR since 1992. First time that I can remember an Oldsmobile truck outside of the Olds Bravada or something, but that I don't even remember if that was a truck or more of a ute kind of thing, like they would race in the V8 in Australia. But Enfinger, who was a contender for the championship for the last few years, taking Cody Robaugh's team to the championship 4 event in Phoenix, Josh. So hometown guy, he's been good at these drafting plate tracks, and he gets a timely win to put himself smack dab in position to possibly get that elusive Truck Series championship.
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, got to concur with you there. Did not know that Oldsmobile made trucks, and I guess they're able to somehow get that one. We're going to go with this, that they somehow got that one through inspection, the body, obviously, and the nose approved there. So, yeah, great shit post by, I think NASCAR Chasm or somebody had the Oldsmobile nose photoshopped onto the actual car. But yeah, Oldsmobile there, which I guess is fitting for Grant Enfinger because he is kind of the veteran of this series. So there, but yeah, I mean, completely, ran good in this race. Ran up front for most of that. So yeah, not a surprise there for Grant Enfinger, of course, who has a chance now to go to now he's in the Final Four. So for him, kind of setting him up for maybe avenging last year's loss, of course, with Corey Heim there with the incident that they had at the end of the race last year, part of it, but that screwed over Grant Enfinger, of course. But Daniel Dye comes up there, I guess a week after being eliminated, comes up there and almost wins his first race, but doesn't come through. Gets a solid pick there. Like I said, Raja Caruth, you finished second back in Daytona and comes up here to Alabama and finishes in fourth place. So got to say that's a good result. He's showing himself to be a super speedway racer. And of course, our algorithm pick finishing fifth. So it's not out of the realm. I mean, say Lawless Allen, the 33 Joshua Hume car. Hey, he was the best finishing Ford there on Friday afternoon there. So it's not always a totally sideways pick there, and it kind of knows, it understands there. But let's see, Corey Hyman, we mentioned him. Where did he finish? He finished in 11th. So yeah, not bad, just solid run. But we'll see how, I guess, in these regular type of races, as they go to Homestead, we saw him last year run well there. So that's probably a good track for him to win and make a spot into the next round, into the Final Four. So for the trucks, but I mean, obviously there was definitely some stuff that happened here. I mean, you had a couple of big ones, but in this track, but I mean, I think at this point, kind of your typical truck race ending there, especially the final lap crash happening on there, which I think that helped Roger Caruth get there because he barely missed that wreck there at the final lap and was able to get through there. So it's kind of a typical for what we see here in the truck series for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great finish for Enfinger, Taylor Gray, Caruth, Eckes, all racing for points. Heim was 11th, Majeski 12th, Ankrum 14th. He had the likes of Ryan Reed making a rare appearance. Stephen Parsons, one of your picks, Josh. Brett Holmes, who's had good runs in ARCA there. I think he finished second in this race last year. So usual suspects as long as you made it through. But Enfinger gets through to Phoenix and gets basically more than a month to prepare for that race too. So we'll see how the Roval team can do and what they bring to the table come Phoenix. Heim is plus 30, Eckes is plus 29 over the cut, and then Majeski, who he won last year at Homestead, so or has won at Homestead before. Raja was very confident in his post-race interview, at least on TV, or I feel like, on radio, he said that he could run the board, so he felt very, very good about his chances at Homestead. So we'll see. His mentor, Darrell Wallace Jr., won at Homestead in a truck. What was his final truck series race up to that point? When he, in the year where he probably could have and should have won the Truck Series championship, but him and Blaney were both in that championship mix. But Majeski plus 5 over Caruth. Then after that, Taylor Gray minus 13, Nick Sanchez minus 20, Ankrum minus 23. So it's going to be a little more difficult for those three drivers without making some headway in Homestead prior to the finish they have over there. All right, so mentioned all of those things. We'll get into IndyCar now. Michael Andretti going in, penning a letter to the fans for all that they've given him in his illustrious career, not only as a driver, but also as an owner. Essentially going and stepping back and allowing Dan Towriss to take over, and wanting to go and essentially said he wanted to go and spend more time with his family. He's been married for 18 years to former Playboy Playmate of the Year Jody Ann Patterson. She gave birth to twins. So they're 10 years old. He's a grandpa to child Marco and his, I thought, so he moved on to another woman. Okay. Wow. Didn't know that. Billy Joe Powers, whoever that is. They just had a baby a few weeks ago. So, so I mean, he's moving on, and at least for, day-to-day operations of the organization, but he's still going to be involved in plenty of decisions and probably trying to get Formula One over here as a team, but also, having an American presence, but other entities that he's involved in with IMSA, with Supercars, with with prototype programs with Cadillac, of course. So yeah, I mean, it's a bummer to see. I was a Michael Andretti fan as a kid, so seeing Michael essentially go away is a shame, but I do think that he'll still have a presence at the racetrack, which is still good. I don't think he's going away forever, but I don't think his days of running the team are over. He made such a big difference, and he was one of the most talented drivers in his era. You don't win 41 races by accident. Couldn't get the Indy 500 that he wanted so much as a driver, but then won it a bunch as an owner. So, made a difference. So many people were giving him thanks, like Kanan and Brian Herta, et cetera, for what he did as an owner and running an organization. You'd think the Weldon family would be another one because, of course, Dan Weldon passed away. But if it wasn't for Andretti and looking out for their family, I don't think Seb or Oliver would be as far along with their careers without Michael Andretti's help. So he's had connections. He has tentacles in so many racing series. And to do that after being a driver, one of the most successful drivers of his era, Josh, it really is a sad day, losing Michael and Michael's voice. And I think similar to what we're going to talk about, at least one story we're going to talk about in the NFL, they're afraid of voices that will speak a certain way or not fit a line or fit in a line here. But yeah, Michael Andretti is a legend. I ain't going to stop. But his perspective on the sport on a weekly basis is something that I'd like to read and see. But yeah, Michael Andretti's out officially, and thank the fans for all the stuff that they were able to do for his organization.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a shock. And I mean, this kind of came about, I guess he was not ready to announce this, but I guess with the formation and the announcement of the charter system and filing the paperwork for all of that, this news kind of came to light that Michael Andretti was passing the baton, so to speak, with Andretti Global, which is very interesting to see. And like, you mentioned, like with kind of criticism of Penske, he's definitely been, especially over the last year, as kind of IndyCar seemingly was not, on the same head of steam that F1 is, and that NASCAR kind of has been the last couple of years. For Michael Andretti, he was kind of the guy, that voice. Remember, he said earlier in the year that if it's going to be like this, they should sell the series, referring to the lack of growth outside of the Indy 500. But Michael's kind of been that guy in the series to be able to call out when needed to. But yeah, I guess now for whatever reason deciding to step away, and yeah, family, want to spend time with family and stuff. I mean, it's understandable and everything, but I do wonder how much time, because he's not going away completely. He'll still be around here and there. And I mean, imagine at the very least that he'll still be around for the Indy 500 as always, because that's very important to the Andretti family. So I imagine for that, maybe some races here and there but we'll see exactly how that looks like next year for him. I think the other thing you have to consider is the Andretti F1 project, which I feel like he was the guy kind of spearheading that, and that's the other kind of where we see the Andretti passion kind of come out, especially as F1's kind of stifling there, and obviously that's also in court right now as well. So got to wonder exactly where does that go. I mean, they've basically, they've got, I guess, a proof of concept in their car. They've got the engine program in place to be able to do it. They've got the UK base over there ready to go. So it's just a matter of getting approved and everything. And now that Andretti is stepping away, we'll see if that's ever able to come to light. I mean, obviously it's out of his hands now, but I also do wonder if part of that, the ambition to push to F1, part of that is kind of what led him to this decision to step away and go do other things or spend less time around racing. So that's definitely a big piece of news there, and kind of like still trying to understand how exactly this has come to light, especially because it's just kind of come out of nowhere for IndyCar fans and open wheel fans, I think in general, to see Michael Andretti just spend less time around racing.
Yeah, it's one of those last connections I have to my initial days of watching IndyCar. He might basically be the last one, to be fair. I always remember Al Unser Jr. and Emerson Fittipaldi, the Burt Kreischer wannabe, Paul Tracy. Just those are some of those guys that were around, and now Michael's leaving. So it's a definite shift change in their world. In terms of things for the future, talking about the past and the present, the future will be racing at in Arlington around both the Globe Life Field and Jerry World. They'll have a dual 2-lane pit lane. You got a few long straightaways from turn 9 all the way out to turn 10. You have then from 10 to 12 and then from 12 to 14. So, I mean, long straightaways, we'll see what the passing zone, you get some 90s into those corners. So, definite passing zones. Not sure about the full-on width of some of the sections, but they said compared to other street courses or other temporary road courses that there's a lot of space, so there might be room for imagination to get a better racetrack. But what it means is you have the Cowgirls and the Texas Rangers involved with IndyCar, two entities that know how to promote, especially Jerry Jones. Anything that Jerry Jones can sit himself in front of a camera and talk nonsense, he'll do it. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, losing Texas, I'm definitely not a Texas Motor Speedway fan. You don't have to listen to I've said how much I dislike Texas on this show for the better part of 5 years. Then before that, in other places where I used to work and cover the sport, I would denigrate the track. So, but losing another oval in the IndyCar series and not really having options is not ideal. And we're down to 5 oval races next year. So, I mean, where do we go from here? Yes, glad that Arlington, this track looks good, at least based on the layout. How it actually will look when they go in race cars, we won't know for another year and 5 months, or at least, a year and 5 months or thereabouts. So, excited for, to see how it goes, but not so sure it's the best for the long-term viability of the series, Josh.
Yeah, that's, it looks interesting. It definitely looks like a track that, could work for the IndyCar. It looks like there's going to be a lot of opportunities for passing. And yeah, like you said, for Jerry World to get involved for Jerry Jones, who said that if it, once he learned about Roger Penske being behind the deal, he's like, I'm in. I guess billionaires trust billionaires, right? But once that happened, he was able to help get behind the project and stuff. And now we have two professional entities working together there, and the Cowboys, obviously the most valuable sports franchise, now hosting IndyCar race on the grounds of their track or stadium. And it's certainly going to help IndyCar bring attention to the series and definitely help bring more eyes, especially among the fans around the country, around the world. You got Fox as well, which Fox being the home for NFC, which the Cowboys are on usually. So there's a lot of promotional opportunity there as well on Fox that can help drag eyes to the series when that race happens. There's that. Also, I mean, given the Cowboys promotion, I mean, can't help but think that they're going to have Dak Prescott as mascot and say, yeah, here we go, start your engines or something like that. So that very well may be a starting command used by Dak Prescott. It was very lame, but I could see him working that one in with his usual signal calling cadence there. So definitely might see that happen.
Yeah, here we go. Well, if he audibles, see, that was a good one, but he needs to audible, and then everyone will be confused, and then like a car won't start or something, and then it really would be a Cowgirls. It would be like their playoff, the way they do in the playoffs. It would be a
Ezekiel Elliott. Yeah. Or how they almost did on Sunday. On Sunday night, they nearly lost on Sunday night. So, that could happen. Maybe we'll see, or get somebody like Emmitt Smith or Troy Aikman. Yeah, Troy Aikman and Tony Romo, cross promotion between CBS. See, there you go. Tony Romo, CBS, Troy Aikman, Fox, ESPN, and then you work in Fox as well, like I said, because they carry the Cowboys and everything. So,
and then also
MLB. So you got that going as well. So George Bush, used to own the Rangers. Yeah. So a lot of angles to work there for promotion. And I mean, it looks like an interesting track. You'll see what it looks like. I'm sure somebody, they'll probably create like a simulation of it, what it'll look like. Maybe not on iRacing, but maybe like on because I know like Romain Grosjean has I think one of the programs that he uses, he always like shows like preview, and I think there are some tracks like St. Pete is not on iRacing, but he showed the sim lookalike of St. Pete a few years ago when he first got into IndyCar. So could see what it looks like there eventually, but I mean, looks like a decent track at least, and you could see a lot of action, and definitely could come at the cost of another oval, like you said, which unfortunate, but that might be the direction for now to grow this series, is to start going to more street races for IndyCar.
Yeah, and probably wouldn't be a bad idea to look at. I mean, know that they keep on. I mean, you have plenty of saturation in the Midwest, but I mean, it also, if you're able to go and work with Jerry Jones, why don't you go and talk to Mara and Tish and Woody Johnson, who's a moron, but wouldn't be such a far-fetched idea to go and do the Meadowlands now again, with all the stuff going on there, with the train they have to get there, with the transit system, being able, I mean, cars is a different thing, but getting there, but they're able to go and support 16 home games for both of these franchises. Then you have the mall, what do they call? I'm forgetting the damn American Dream Mall. They have there too. So there's a lot more there than what there used to be back in the years of the Meadowlands Grand Prix. They were talking about New England. I know they were talking about something out there in Boston years ago that went nowhere. Baltimore, they raced around Camden Yards, so that's that happened. So there's options, but it also makes you wonder about what IndyCar is trying to do if they're trying to be on ovals, because it's a good product on ovals, and you need it because the biggest race of the year is on one, and it's part of what made IndyCar such a difficult series is the fact that you had to do so many different disciplines, whether it's permanent road course, temporary road or street circuit. You had short ovals, medium-sized ovals, and then, of course, Indy, the big oval, the biggest one of them all. So it was a challenge to win a championship. That's what you want. You don't want to lose that identity, especially knowing that Indy means so much. So we'll see what happens with that, but at least a rare win for the IndyCar series with their PR team as well. All right, so we'll start with NFL Week 5. I could bring up our matchup. I mean, we had the best matchup, I think. Well, there was also 10-point or less than 10 points between Matt and Vic. We were 20-ish. And then Wilson actually got a win over Manny, which was 27. But in terms of our fantasy matchup, you were able to get a lot of productivity out of your running backs and wide receivers. You have Derrick Henry and Brandon Ayuk, who decided to come out of got rousted out of slumber. CJ Stroud in a tough matchup against Buffalo put up a decent score, but Geno Smith did better, even though they lost to the Giants. I mean, only Marvin Harrison Jr. amongst your starting players really had a bad day. DK Metcalf, similar for me. My IDPs got me a few extra points compared to yours, who all did pretty decently. And then really, I think the main difference was Lamar Jackson, who went absolutely mental with 4 touchdowns, 348 passing yards, with 55 rushing yards. He had, and there are some other stats like 12 rushes for 55 yards. He did lose a fumble, but he had 19 first downs, 18 passing, 1 rushing. So, great performance. Wasn't as good as Kirk Cousins on Thursday night, but tight matchup nonetheless. The Niners, they blew that game. They never really seem to play great against Arizona, and this is yet another example of it. The same problems exist that have existed. Poor offensive line play, especially in the center and right guard position. Not really being able to establish or keep the run going. Ayuk was able to play well, but Juwan Jennings got dinged up. Debo was 50-50. George Kittle played solidly, and he's had a good start to the year. There's things like everyone's talking about CMC and his injury, but Mason's ran really well. It's just that he's not as dynamic, of course, as Christian McCaffrey, which is to be expected. But he's done the job, and he's out there and he's available, and that's a big difference. But there are improvements that need to be made on the offensive line because Brock Purdy's been running for his life all season. Defensively, just been piss poor, with defensive line, the rush, forgetting the defensive tackle's name that they got from Philly, but they are lacking a pass rush outside of Bosa and they bought Leonard Floyd, they got other guys, and not really producing. Linebacker core, Fred Warner, God bless him, he's one of my favorite players and one of the best linebackers in the league, but he misses way too many tackles. He's not the only one that missed tackle. There's an insistence of wanting to have like the truck stick, big hit kind of mentality instead of just tackling people, and that's where you give up big chunk plays. That's where you go and lose something that way. So secondary sucked. Generally, they didn't do anything. They gave no resistance to Kyler Murray. He was able to run all over the map, and so that was one thing. And then he was able to, whoever he threw to, they were able to advance the field. So that's when and then special teams lose Jake Moody on a kickoff return trying to tackle. Then Mitch Wishnowsky can basically only kick an old extra point, field goal wise, maybe a few yards behind that. They had no kicker. They weren't able to close in the red zone, and so that's where we ended up there. Right now, we're both at 3-2 in the league, so we're only a game out of first place. I get to play Steve, Islander Relevancy, this coming week. Josh, you're the High Points 4 battle, 3 horse race between you, me, and Steve. Football is life is Matt. He's right now in second, so we'll see who goes where. He's playing one. I don't wonder. I'm sure. Oh yeah, that's Luke. So yeah, Matt and Luke. Then you have Joe and Manny. Josh and Vic. Jeff and Wilson, and then myself against Steve. But hoping the Niners can go out and actually get a win on Thursday night against Seattle and right the ship, so to speak, prior to moving to that. So it was a tight matchup, but Lamar Jackson definitely gave me the productivity that I needed from the guy who I picked as my first round draft pick. So, but in your case, Josh, your Jaguars on a throwback weekend, those jerseys look great. Went out and played similar to that kind of team, because you can't have certain people go make plays like that. But Jacksonville, at least there's a start of a light with that win. Division isn't out of reach, but when you consider Houston's kind of been iffy, Tennessee is pretty iffy, Indianapolis probably is going to be playing Flacco the rest of the year, so you're going to get good and bad with that, but at least the Jags are off the schneid for now. And let us know your thoughts on that, Josh, along with the fantasy team.
Yeah, starting out with fantasy, since that was our matchup there, usually, I feel if I leave points on the bench, I'll feel disappointed. Or, if I miss out on a player in free agency and they end up doing good, or on waivers and they do end up doing it, and I wasn't able to sign them, I'll be like, oh man, that sucks. But, I felt like I had a good game otherwise. Like, this is otherwise a win. You just had a really good week, against with Lamar Jackson there, getting a huge win in the shootout with Cincinnati there. And the only one that really didn't come up was Marvin Harrison, which that was just one of those games. He draws a lot of attention, of course, and is a guy that they have to really account for. So not really surprised there with that. But Derrick Henry had a big game as well. Brian Robinson, solid game. Geno Smith, had a big game as well. Which I was kind of hoping that the Giants game would go to overtime, but then blocked field goal ended that one, and that basically ended any opportunity for points there. for me. So, it was a solid game all around for me, I think. But, just, wasn't able to pull it out there. But yeah, Ayuk had a good game too. So 2 games that were in the same game with Harrison and Ayuk. But I mean, for me, more importantly, look at the big picture. I mean, I'm in the lead in terms of points scored, I think, so in our league. So that should help, later on for tiebreakers as long as I keep up the trends, of course. I've complained in years past, especially the last couple of years, of having a team that squeaks out wins but doesn't really get points overall. And this one here, with the points being in the points lead, maybe I've kind of solved that issue, hopefully. So, fantasy is mostly like anyways, but, being able to at least not be as concerned about that, that's certainly something to look forward or to, keep in the big picture, especially as, we get later in the year and start having tiebreakers and all that stuff. That'll definitely help there. And, I think I've already won the weekly leader win like twice, I think. So, that's, good there too. So, definitely fantasy wise in our league, it wasn't all that bad, honestly. So, facing, Vic this week. So, it's going to be interesting. Those ones are always an interesting matchup there. Work league, my fantasy league there, ended up winning that one. Didn't really have good scoring there, honestly. Had some guys on a bye week, kickers on a bye week, of course, and all that. Guys that were injured or on a bye week or whatever. So didn't have a very high scoring, but Kareem Hunt able to save the day, win the night for me on Monday Night Football there. Didn't have to wait too long since he got the touchdown. Game over there. And I go into 4th place in my other leagues. So not bad there. Still going. So still in contention. Somebody I know is in 5th place, or not 5th place, but in 5-0, I guess, through the year. I'm like, I was talking to one of my other friends in this league, and it was like, yeah, somebody's got to beat this guy at some point. So, 5-0. He's got Lamar Jackson also. I was like, yeah, that's why he's winning. He's got Lamar Jackson. So, and I think he has Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. That's I don't know who allowed that, but let me like double check on that really quick, because I want to, since I said that, now I have to verify. But let's see, going to that really quick. Yeah, he's got Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Like what the heck? Like, how did that happen? But yeah, that's kind of funny there. But anyways, yeah, that. And then of course the Jags. Yeah, finally getting first win in 2024, finally off the board there. Didn't think I'd be talking about this in first week of October, but nonetheless, here we are. Trevor Lawrence finally looked like the guy that they paid money to be the franchise quarterback, and not what we've seen throughout the first couple of weeks. And hopefully it's not just because it was his birthday or anything, and he put up a big game there with 371 yards passing and 2 touchdowns there. So the first quarter was looking shaky there, especially they went for it on 4th down. He missed Gabe Davis on a potential out route there on 3rd down, and then 4th and 2, they didn't convert. And I was like, oh, here we go again. But, they slowly but surely came out with the win. Gabe Davis fumbled the ball before halftime and kind of gave the Colts an opportunity, but, then Trayvon Walker showed up, and Josh Allen was able to capitalize and scoop and score the fumble, and scoop the fumble and take it down to the 12-yard line, and they kicked the field goal there to kind of recover some of the points that was lost from Gabe Davis there fumbling. And then, from there, they were able to kind of take control of the game in the second half. A couple of big runs by the Jaguars to kind of seal the game, but then should have been over when it was 34-20, but then defense came back and decided to, not play and give Joe Flacco an opportunity down the field and make him look like, 2012 Joe Flacco there. So got to tighten up on defense. I don't know if it's the personnel because people are injured or stuff, or just a bad scheme or something, but that's definitely a worrying trend there. And then, on offense, they got the ball back another time. It was 34-27, and the offense went 3 and out there, and I was like, okay, here it comes. It's happening again. It's the best game of the year on offense. We're still going to figure out a way to lose, and it'll be 0-5 again. But then they went right down the field and got the field goal there with less than a minute left. Cam Little, 49-yard field goal, and then some based on the trajectory and the way it landed on the field goal net. So that was a very good that they were able to go and do that. And then, from there, basically just keep the Colts out of the end zone, which they were able to do. So, yeah, the Jags getting up on the board. Now they got the London series coming up, which I guess good that they're playing their home game in London instead of Florida right now with the storms going on. So, the playing the Bears, Caleb Williams, we'll see going up against the rookie quarterback. We'll see how this shapes up this time. We'll see how Trevor Lawrence is able to do against the Bears, which I don't think he's ever faced before. So that'll be a little new wrinkle there, of course. And then they'll play the Patriots the week after that. And that might be I don't know, we'll see how that game goes because Drake May's going to start for the Patriots here this Sunday, and that'll be a second career game in 2 weeks against the Jaguars. So definitely to see about that. But interesting to see the next couple of weeks here. And then they play the Packers, I think at home. Yeah, I think at home here for Jacksonville. So we'll see how this goes. But if they get a couple of W's here, they'll be back at 500 by the end of the month, going into November, with Peterson returning to Philadelphia on Sunday Night Football. So be an interesting matchup there. We'll see how it all works out. But yeah, finally got to win throwback uniforms, which, by the way, they are returning the throwback uniforms later in the year, December, against the Jets, against the Robert Saleh-less Jets there. So maybe Coach Shane Gillis and Joe Rogan will go out there and coach them to an L against the throwback uniform Jacksonville Jaguars, which they need to make permanent. Just make them permanent. I don't know why. They're better than what we have. I mean, I like the uniforms that we have now that we have, but the throwback one's way better, and I like them more. So make them permanent.
Yeah, it's like the Niners using the throwback uniforms. They just look better. They seem to play better in them too, so they ought to go and use those regularly than their regular uniforms. I think going back to the throwbacks, it's better. I think it's probably better for merch sales too, so they should do that too. But those Jaguars jerseys, like I mentioned last time, was going back to Brunell and McCardell and Jimmy Smith and Kevin Hardy and Tony Baselli, et cetera, all those names of the past when the Jags were originally made. That's what that jersey harkened back to for me. So those are, and playing like Madden in those days as well. So it was definitely not the kind of graphics we have now, but it was cool to see, and Jacksonville going being able to get that job done on Sunday, get off the schneid. I mean, the whole thing, that's the last thing we'll talk about before we get into the roundup, that Bob Saleh supposedly had demoted Nathaniel Hackett as the play caller because the offense blows, and Aaron, I guess, called Woody Johnson. Woody Johnson fired him because it's like within 5 minutes of that happening, there's all this stuff going on. Bob Saleh was not amazing as a head coach, but it wasn't, all on him. Their defense is playing decently. Their offense is terrible. And Aaron Rodgers is washed. He doesn't have any chemistry with his two best offensive players in Wilson and Hall. So I don't know where they're trying to go with their deal. Getting rid of Bob Saleh as a scapegoat. Joe Douglas is the one that built the team, and he's had how many opportunities, drafted multiple quarterbacks. At some point you have to go and get rid of the GM. We're not going to lose the owner, sadly, but having Douglas out there, it's negligence. So we'll see if Jeff Ulbrich, former 49er linebacker, can go and get accountability from these guys moving forward. But yeah, it sucks for Bob Saleh, but the amount of money he's making to sit at home doesn't really suck that much. We'll go and start with MotoGP, the Japanese Grand Prix. Saw Pecco Bagnaia go and get the win over Jorge Martin. Mark Marquez, Bastianini, Franco Morbidelli, top 5. Best of the rest is Brad Binder for KTM, then 2 more. And Alicia Spargaro was 9th, and Jack Miller was 10th. Quattararo had some struggles and finished just outside the top 10. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of 6 riders were not classified. Pedro Acosta crashed while running up front. There's Maverick Vinales, Gustav Fernandez, Lorenzo Salvadori, and Joan Mir and Alex Marquez crashed out on the first lap. The points standings for MotoGP, Jorge Martinez only 10 points out of Pecco Bagnaia. For the World Championship, Bastianini is 2 points out of Marc Marquez. Brad Binder, with his finish on Sunday, passes his future teammate, Pedro Acosta, by 2 points. And then go from there. Yeah, so that's the points. And then the next race for MotoGP will be the Australian Grand Prix at Phillip Island, and then they'll have a back-to-back, or actually a triple header. They'll be racing in Thailand and then Malaysia, so before the last race at Valencia. In Moto 2, the Grand Prix, Moto 2, the Japanese Grand Prix, Manny Gonzalez gets the victory over Ayagura, Philippe Salek, Salek, Alcoba, Vandergerber around at the top 5. And no points for Joe Roberts, who looks like either didn't start or doesn't have anything listed there. He finished 27th, so he's basically done. Then, in terms of the point standings heading into their next races, Moto 2, Ayagura is 20, 60 points ahead. Ayagura is of Sergio Garcia. Then Garcia's 5 points ahead of Lopez. And then there's 13 or 12, third, second, of fourth. And was it 15 points for Joe Roberts in 5th, tied with Manny Gonzalez. Move forward to the NHRA at Dallas. So we'll see what goes on with that. Move forward to NHRA in Dallas this coming weekend. The standings: Antron Brown 34 points out of Justin Ashley, 60 points out of Langdon, 87 over defending champ Doug Coletta, and 88 over Steve Torrent. Mentioned Tony's success in the Top Alcohol Dragster. This is not his usual office. Trying to go a round or two to finish out the season, get some momentum and some data heading towards 2025. Funny car, Austin Prock 105 out of John Force and Jack Beckman. So that'll be that's going to be tough for anyone to get past Prock. In Pro Stock, Dallas Glenn's plus 31 points out of Aaron Stanfield, 90 ahead of Enders, and then 116 Glenn to his teammate Greg Anderson. So 2 KB Titan vehicles, and then 2 of the elite performance drivers. And Pro Stock Motorcycle, Gage Herrera 34-point lead on Matt Smith, 65 on Richard Gadsden. That's why I always say, so that's the NHRA. We'll move to the Bathurst 1000 this coming weekend. and Repco Supercars Championship, new format, final series introduced. You have it reveals, so instead of 12 rounds, it'll be 13 rounds in 2025. You'll have 8 sprint races, then 2 enduros, and then the 3 playoff events. Newer announced, so you have sprint, then you have the enduros, then you have the finals, which in all of that is very similar to NASCAR's current playoff format. It's kind of convoluted, but it is what it is. We'll see how it works. Hopefully with the reset, it can bring some teams that fell behind early in the season a chance to catch up. We'll see how that all plays out. The points heading to the season standings, result, and so that's not what I wanted. I wanted season or driver standings. So right now, Will Brown has the lead by nearly 200. It's 190 or 189 right now over Chaz Mostert and Brock Feeney, Cam Waters, and Matt Payne, fighting out the top 5 in terms of Fords. 6 Fords in the top 10 versus, but still the Red Bulls are first and third, and they have 9 wins between the two of them and 6 poles, so they've been the most dominant. The Tickford guys, whether it's Mostert or Matt Payne, trying to make a big move at Bathurst, and a big one. Changes of format. I mean, I'd have to go and really go through it and read every size that they put as a. Trying to go and do all that. So then, I mean, in IMSA, if you want to go and find out all the different teams and combinations, he's readily available. So, and always like to talk. The event details. We got. There's been a bunch of announcements in terms of the field expanding, and especially in GTD, with more cars that are available. Mention the points. It's just something to see for sure outside how you guys going to get down. So that is all for me in the roundup. Let us move towards the picks. I had first pick last week, so Josh, you get first pick this week. And also the other question, or there's 2 other questions. One is who makes it out into the round of 8. And if you have any questions, comments, whatever regarding the some of the other things you're able to do, you can go and find out for picks here for the Roval, who makes it, who fouls out, and winner and wild card.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna say. Well, I guess I'll start off with winner. Just go ahead and pick SVG. I've been saying it for several months, so this one is clearly some one that's been in the making for a while there. So right off the bat, we'll pick him to win. Let's see who else is here that I could possibly pick as a wild card. I'm going to go with Ed Jones as wild card there in the 26. He's a IndyCar guy, of course, but the Roval definitely it's a track that could suit well for him there. Interesting to note, of course, the Roval layout is changing this year. So that's another factor. It's going to be a little bit different than what it was in years past. So that's definitely something to factor in there. So yeah, for me, of course, who makes it in and out of the playoffs here? I mean, SVG obviously currently out, so that means that he'd make it in if he were to win here, and that leaves it with who else who makes it or who falls out. And obviously Sammy Smith in this one. Who else is I mean, it's a pretty tight field. I mean, I'll say that I don't think Parker Kligerman can make it out. Sam Mayer, I think, deficit, especially with being DQ'd there, so that's huge for him, being DQ'd. And there's a lot of people like that possibly, it would take a lot for some of these guys to fall out. So AJ Allmendinger, man, that's a knockout there, especially because he's only 7 points to the good. SVG bumps him out if he wins. Oh, that's tough. Damn, I feel bad. This is a big one, but I'm gonna say AJ Allmendinger falls out, gets bumped out, and that means I think Justin Allgaier also doesn't make it out of this round too.
Two perennial championship favorites in this series getting knocked out at the Roval would be something, and it's part of why the Roval is there where it is. Allgaier, you also said Kligerman. And then who was the other one?
Mayer.
Yeah, Mayer. Okay. Yeah, Mayer. Okay. For me, in terms of the entry list and who I'll go pick, there's 38 for 38, so you got Josh Williams calling, Dylan Lupton, Allmendinger, Creed, Josh Bilicki, Eric Almirola, Ed Jones, etc. So, my choice for this weekend, I mean, you took SVG. I am going to go with Cole Custer. Solid on road courses. And it would be the last race for this iteration of the team on a road course. So I've been between two people in regards to who I was going to pick for wild card, but I will go and say Austin Green. Austin Green, wild card. My choices to get knocked out of the current playoff standings if having a bad day for one, and then getting into somebody else's stuff. And I think the cut line swaps. I think Allgaier gets in, Allmendinger is out, and SVG and Mayer and Kligerman all go home or go no further, as Steve Matchett used to say in qualifying. So I said Allmendinger, bring up, Allmendinger, SVG, Mayer, and Kligerman. Mayer and Klig. Alright, so Cup Series, I'll get first picks here for the Roval. On the Cup side, you have 38 for 40. So I am going to go with, you went with him in Xfinity, I'll go with him in Cup. He got screwed out at Chicago, where he probably had the fastest car at the racetrack, but Briscoe lost his brakes or slid and completely demolished SVG's car there. So I'm going to pick SVG to win in the Cup race on Sunday. VG to win, and wild card for there's that. Not going to do that. Trying to go and do that, and picked SVG to win. My wild card choice will be, oh man, this is brutal. My wild card I will take. Man, this is really tough. I'm trying to think of who's really good on road courses. As a wild card too, not as the main player. I will go. Damn it, this is brutal. You know what? I'll go with Gumby. Is that I can't. No, I can't do that because he's still in the playoffs. Fuck. You know what? I'll go with Christopher Buescher there. What say you, Josh, on your picks? Oh yeah, and Buescher wild card. My cutoff, I was gonna go with Gumby, but he's still in the playoffs. The points after that race, yeah. Logano, as mentioned. Logano, Suarez, Cindric, Briscoe. Cindric, Briscoe, and Suarez are all pretty much in deep trouble. There's 3 drivers that are separated with similar amounts, so a lot more sabotage, as William Shatner would call it. So I'm going to say chalk to all of those drivers.
All right. Yeah, for me, I guess my pick here. Damn, there's a lot of ways you can go with this. I don't know. I'm gonna go with a non-guy. If you're going to SVG, I'm gonna say that AJ Allmendinger repeats at the Roval from last year, and say that. That's a pretty good pick. And I mean, I like the theme here we're going because, I mean, we're picking 2 road ringers, but also, I mean, this has got to be the first time in a while that's happened where, well, I guess since the 2022 opening round where nobody in the playoffs won any of the first 3 races, because you had the first race, Jones, then Bubba Wallace, and then Buescher at Bristol in 2022. And here could possibly be the second round, which I don't think that's ever happened before in the second round, where the playoff guys didn't win, because you have Chastain winning Kansas, and then last week with Stenhouse taking it on Talladega, and now here with seeing that Allmendinger would get the win there as a non-point guy. So that's kind of insane there with how he's how this could play out. So with that being said, of course, my wild card here, I'm gonna go with this might be a weird one, but I'm gonna go with Justin Haley. I think he's decently good enough. Like, he's the guy. I mean, he's been interesting. I mean, throughout the years in the Cup Series, but I feel like he's got some road course talent in him that we haven't quite seen yet. He's ran with Rick Ware for a bit, ran with Colleague in the 31. Remember, street course race. Did finish second to SVG there back at the street course. So I'm going to say, yeah, he's a wild card here. Here with the 7, which looking good now. That's not wrecking every week there with Corey LaJoie. So yeah, that's my wild card, and I think I'm going to go with the same here with the eliminations. I'm going to say it's unchanged. I don't think Logano can point his way into the playoffs or into the round of 8. It's going to be pretty tough for him. Suarez, hit or miss. Cindric, as much as he's good at road courses, just think it's too much of a deficit. And Briscoe, who, I mean, he has done it before, but I don't know if he can do it again here this Sunday.
All right. Yeah. All right. So that's our picks. And I mean, before we move to your sim segment, I mean, there is one thing, the track changes. They made a change to the chute, like the straightaway on they made the changes to the straightaway to get to. It was literally on one of these pages. I saw all the all the changes. They don't bother to put that there. Charlotte Roval, lays in on layout. Got that. So in terms of the first 4 corners stay the same. Turn 5 is still kind of a sweeping right, but it'll go straight instead of through part of the loops into a harder, like, turn 6. And then they'll have a big tight hairpin turn 7 before they go and get through all the issues and whatever. Then you'll have that turn 7 hairpin, which I forget who said somebody's going to ship it in the final restart to get that win over there, and will come in a whatever fairness and rubbing versus racing that occurred. But there's that. So yeah, the bus stop on the backside was changed a couple years ago. They changed it. The bus stop at the final 3 corners, they changed that one. So we'll see what happens. Biggest change is from 5 all the way to 7. That was pretty funny. So what were your thoughts on the changes and how you think that will they affect the racing this coming weekend?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm very curious about the first hairpin that they're putting in onto the transition back onto the oval turn 1 and 2 there. But overall, I don't know how much that's really going to change things going through that corner. Before it seemed to be more of a wider turn going through the inner course section, but now it's going to basically be a hairpin, so it might make for some tight action through there going back onto the oval, and it's definitely going to probably lower the top speeds going through there, because I feel like going onto the oval, because I feel like the previous configuration could definitely carry some speed onto the banking and going through there, so that might be kind of interesting to see. I mean, obviously they'll gearing and stuff set it up for that, but that might be a little interesting to see how that plays out there going into the bus stop chicane on the back stretch. And then, of course, the front stretch chicane, they changed it a little bit to be a little bit tighter. So try to encourage more passing, I guess. So we'll see how that works out. If that leads to, I think, both of those, a hairpin or very tight corners could, possibly open up an opportunity for a dive bomb type of move. So we'll see how that plays out and how that affects the racing, especially the first one. They kind of bypass part of the inner loop and kind of keep it straight going into the first hairpin there, going back onto the oval. So that's going to be interesting there, especially it's going to be a bit of a higher speed section, I think. So we'll see how that affects the racing there, and if people take advantage of that, or maybe take too much advantage of that at the expense of other racers. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's definitely something to see, and the practices are going to be much more important than they have been on recent races for the ones that actually did have practice. So to get more data and see where your tires are at and the whole bit. So we'll see how that works, and we'll talk about it next week along with a special guest, somebody that we've had before, making another appearance, so that'll be great, and talk about all that stuff that we have going on this coming weekend. But first, Josh, let us know what's going on iRacing and gaming in your sim segment.
Yeah, of course. iRacing here. Might have a little bit of time here this week to do that, but the obviously NASCAR Cup and Xfinity at Charlotte Motor Speedway, Roval here this week to be able to run on that. That should be fun running that. IndyCar Fixed Oval at Motegi this week. Gen 4 Cup at North Wilkesboro. Do I have that? Yeah, the 1987 North Wilkesboro. Yep. So got that there. Fixed IndyCar also at New Hampshire this week in the Formula License Fixed Series, so that should be interesting there. IndyCar iRacing Series, I don't know if they have any. I don't think they have any sessions. Yeah, okay, never mind there. But got that. So I think the main focus is going to be on the Roval here racing. Enjoy the Roval. They don't have the changes in yet that we just talked about, but still pretty fun to run on the Roval, in my opinion. It's an interesting track. I don't know if it leads to any good racing, but I certainly enjoy running on it there. Sports car this week ran or will be running, looking like Lime Rock Park and the Mustang Challenge there. The Ferrari GT3 at Oulton Park. You got Production Car Sim Challenge at Enzo Dino Ferrari at Imola there. Advanced Mazda Cup at Nürburgring. You got the Charlotte Motor Speedway and the Spec Racer Challenge as well this week. So Rainmaster at Oulton Park as well. So got that there. MX5 Motorsport Arena Oslerspin there. I don't know if I said that right, but whatever. Then Formula Car, you've got the Formula Fords at Motorsport Arena Oslerspin. Formula Ford also at Hungaroring there. The FIA F4 for Formula 4 at Watkins Glen there. So that's definitely some opportunities there. This week I did do iRacing. A couple of races I did, one or two, I think, on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course for the Toyota GR Cup. Ran okay there. I think I should have ran better than I did. Had a couple of incidents there. Finished 14th. Which I think that was coinciding with the Indianapolis 8 hours. That's why that series was there. And then Cup side, I did do one at Talladega, which, started out, I was running okay, running up, making my way towards the front, and then get clipped and get taken wheel damage, and then spend most of the race trying to not fall a lap down. Got saved by some cautions and was able to make a ton of repairs. And then towards the end, made a charge. Took some holes open that opened up to 10th, and then the final restart was able to kind of claw my way through there on the final restart to finish 6th. Although the fuel only lasted, I think it was only supposed to last until the end of the race, but then had a green white checkered and then ran out in the middle of the tri-oval or at the exit of the tri-oval coming to the start finish line. So didn't lose too much there, but finished in 6th in the Cup side there. So probably have some opportunity this week to stream, hopefully, of course, and then we'll let people know on Twitter where this is at. But of course, Twitch TV at USailor2, and then of course Twitter JP Huffine there talking about NASCAR, talking about the Jags. One thing I did see on Twitter, kind of scouring information for this, is I saw that Kenny Wallace and Ken Schrader are on the Dale Jr. or on the Dirty Mo Media Network. So that should be very interesting. I'll say that those guys got some real stories there to tell. So I might have to start listening to that.
Kenny and Kenny show.
Yeah.
Or the Ken and Kenny show, or whatever the fans come up with. Allowing Ken Schrader a microphone to talk about anything, and especially with Kenny Wallace being his sidekick or vice versa, is very dangerous. Even with podcasting, just based on that one little test episode they had there, just Kenny saying anything, or Ken Schrader saying anything, really had Kenny going. Coffee with Kenny, of course, he does on his YouTube page. I guess it's a way for him to go and use some of the takes and some of the things that he's done on his own page and do it through Dirty Mo. So we'll see. I'm curious if they could get Mark Martin on so he can go and pontificate about what he thinks about the next gen car or Gen 7 car, since he's been pretty outspoken about it. I can only imagine what Ken Schrader really thinks about this car, let alone Kenny Wallace. So. Yeah,
that should be entertaining there. But still definitely maybe have some interaction there, but I wanted to just bring that up briefly. But of course, this page, Gripster Podcast on YouTube, which will have the episodes up there and be able to watch that. Also, I guess at some point, I'll have some time this week to finally finish making my mini documentary or short film of my coast to coast road trip, which gonna post that on YouTube, I think, and post that and show what we did and everything. There's a time lapse already that one of my friends put up, so I'll probably put this up at some point later in the week and show a 30-minute movie of 28 hours in a car going from Florida to California. So definitely some good points there and hopefully get that done. So I'll definitely let you know, Phil, when I put that up there. You can watch it wherever, and let me know what you think. I mean, it's kind of interesting, so we'll see. See if I'm able to get that one done. But yeah, definitely go in there, which I'll post on my personal YouTube page actually for that for there. But I'll probably share that one too. So yeah, that's it for me. Of course, definitely got a lot going on this week, of course, but we'll be able to get onto the Roval, and of course, early. I guess it'll be a little bit of an early day where I actually be able to watch the Jaguars and watch NASCAR without them overlapping each other, with the Jaguars playing in London this week. So be able to watch both the Roval and the Jags in full, hopefully on Sunday.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, the same kind of thing for me with the Niners playing on Thursday night. Give me more opportunity to look at the early window, but then also the Roval race and NHRA during the weekend. You can find me at PGMatthew28 on Twitter, MGPGSP28 on Instagram, philipgmatthew.com for one of the places you can find the show, at GripStripPod on Twitter. Obviously the YouTube page, which Josh curates and does a great job with that as well. So yeah, find us there. And yes, next week we'll have a special guest returning to talk about a whole bunch of things based on his vast knowledge, promoting a little bit too. As always, though, we'll do it. Hopefully everything will be all right for you and your family, Josh, and our thoughts to our buddy Joe Passero, who had to evacuate. Him and his family had to evacuate out of Florida, and are going to Georgia, in Georgia with family, because of the weather event here with the tornadoes. So our thoughts and everything go out to those who are being affected by that and the previous storm itself. So we just have to go and take care of one another best we can. That's really what it's all about. Josh, as always, thanks for carrying me and my moments of zoning and providing great insights, and also with the technical side as well, and being a good buddy and giving me something to want to aim for one day, like winning an Indy 500 or going and driving a gas-powered go-kart, or be a complete psychopath and be a part of driving at 100 miles an hour across the United States or whatever. That would be something, that would be the one that I might be able to do, because I already kind of sort of do that myself when I'm driving to different places. So thankful to you, and thankful to everyone there with, so we're thinking of you here and always got support, and for people that support us, of course, in general, support this show. Thankful to all of you and listening. And we'll be back next week for episode 241 of the GSP to talk about all things Charlotte Roval and much, much more. Formula One will be back at that point, so that'll be good. But we'll discuss it all on the GSP, so we thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.